My dad was a carpenter, and I grew up watching him build houses. And he was, not a contractor, just an everyday kind of a carpenter who women would call up and he would fix things. And then he would, actually build houses too. Because I was his daughter and he was of that era that women don't need to learn to do these things, and we don't want them to learn to do these things. But he liked to have me around. So in the summertime, I would go with him to his job sites, and he would give me, I'm a kid, I'm 8 years old. He'd give me a hammer and nails, and he'd sit me over in the corner, and he'd go, build whatever you want, play. And I would watch him with all these tools, and I would watch him working, but I couldn't learn how to do the electric tools. And as I got older, he really didn't teach me. But I think what I loved was I loved watching him build things and make something from nothing. I just loved it. I go to college and I go to study graphic design. And then over the years I work as a graphic designer, and I end up with this mindset that tells me everything is about good design. I always wanted a tree house in this backyard, but I don't have a tree. And the reason that I wanted a tree house was because I wanted to climb up to something and sit in a loft. And so my tree is my neighbor's tree that hangs over my property, so I know that I can't put anything there. So it started as being a very small little footprint of 10 by 12, and what I wanted to do more than anything was to build a loft bed. And so, might as well build something underneath it too. So then this became my little sitting area where I would come out and watch TV at night, and then I really began to love the whole idea of separating, having separate spaces that I could go to make artwork, to live, to come out and watch TV. It was sort of the travel through my backyard that really relaxed me at night, and it made me think that it's time to do something different. So it's sort of, then it's not all in the house, it's out here, I have to come out here. And so I built this little house, and it was my TV nighttime place that I would come out to, and I just loved the way it felt. I had a window, I had a little pond right here, I had, the sound of water running, and then I'd occasionally sleep up there, which was just the sweetest thing in the world. And so then one day I'm sitting there and I'm staring outward and I'm thinking, I've got a daughter who's at some point probably going to live back at my house, and I thought, well, if she's going to come and live with me, probably it would be best for both of us if we lived in separate spaces. And so I thought, what, this is like the size of a tiny house. So then I started doing research about tiny houses and the way that they were made. And plus and another reason why I built this is because I can, and because it gives me great pleasure to build things. And it's just fun to figure out. I love the problem solving of trying to figure out how to build something. And you'll see in this little house, when I knocked out this window to bring it out here, I poured a foundation, I had to jackhammer out the little pond, but this sets up on a stone raised area. That part of the house does. And so I thought it would just be so much fun to be able to incorporate that stone and have it just come into the living space. And so you would walk into the house, and then you see the stones that's part of the outside as well. So then I started trying to figure out how to build around that, and one thing leads to the next. And then I thought, well, I might as well put a full bathroom in here, and that leads to me starting to look at shower compartments and what they feel like when you stand there, and it's all about how that it feels. And I thought, I don't like those things. I don't like them. They're very tight, but that's about the amount of space that I'd have to build it. Well, there are practical applications to having, a fan in the middle of a space that's going to move the air. But in terms of the lighting, I wanted recessed lighting because I wanted the lighting to be invisible. I wanted it to just be, you be able to control it. You put it on a slider so that you can have a low light or highlight, whatever it is you want. But the light down in this section doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to instill itself that much into the space. Up above I have this one light that when you turn it on, it just projects this lovely pattern all over the walls and the ceilings. And you know, in some ways that was accidental. I just went looking. You know, I went looking for something that was going to hang there and was going to look nice in that space, because it's a space where you can be at the level of the light. It's a space you can be underneath, and there's a lot of wall space that the light can project onto. And so I found a really nice shaped light that just happened to be blown glass and blown in such a way that it had striations in it, that when I put a light bulb in it, it went all over the walls. So that to me was like this magical happenstance that happened. But again, it makes me think next time around, those are things that I can push a little bit further. The original intent was, I was looking at this book on pebble mosaics, and I wanted the whole backyard to be a giant mosaic. You know, it's like trying to break up the space with, you know, just an interesting line and interesting color. For me, everything is just one little problem to solve. It's just like, how, you know, a little shelf, how do I build it to go into the wall and sort of, you know, come out another side? Or how do I build something that can swing down and save space, but then swing back up and give extra space? And so when it came to doing this little house, I already knew how to kind of make things, and I know the basic principles of it. And when I drive by a house being built, looking at it, you look at it and you go, it's simple. It's actually quite logical if you think about it, the way things are made. And so for me, it's just, I get great pleasure in doing it because, you know, most of my childhood, I was always discouraged from doing anything. And they would say, oh, you can't do that. You're not big enough. You're not strong enough. And I think, well, I can show you. So I am big enough, I am strong enough, and leverage is my great friend. So I don't have to be 200 pounds, and I don't have to be a male. I can build a whole house all by myself. So now, my daughter, who's, you know, off in college, who's going to come back, I thought was going to need a place to live. But my original intention is that this was going to be an apartment for boomerang children who would come back. This little place has a bit of my personal voice in it, but the next place will have even more of my personal voice in it, and the next place will have even more. And so that's the kind of work. I mean, it's just like, it's art making, basically. So my next body of work is going to be about women in art history. The last body of work that I had was a big thing called Not Quite Salvation, and it was these big, giant, naked men on their knees in rapture to this unseen God. And after having worked on that for a year, I've kind of had enough of big naked men, so I'm ready to change for a while and deal with the female form. And I've always had this idea, even when I was in college, I was doing paintings that were sort of throwbacks and would give kind of a cheeky reference to art history. And so I'm gonna approach that again, and hopefully in a, 20-year plus more mature way, and think about how women have been represented throughout art history, and how that I can maybe take the timelessness of paintings about women, but sort of change the culture by just changing something ever so slightly. And I don't want to be an easy read. So I want it to be something that's subtle, and it's not a joke. It's not just a one-liner. It's something that's changing art history in a in a positive way toward the way that I think that women are, rather than the way that all the male painters of the last 200 years have said that they are.